Hey everybody, good morning. This is Scott Toweiler here, and today we're going to be working on some pictures. So this jazz-laden now background music is because I switched audio providers, so now we actually have some music to go. When I'm not talking, it's not dead air, and you don't have to hum along. This is a stream where I just basically work on some photos in Photoshop and in Capture One, mostly Photoshop. So this is a good opportunity for you to see an image from the outset all the way to completion. So this is not a video where we're going to show you a bunch of tips and tricks and smash them together and you'll have to remember where did I see that. This is a project from beginning to end, and I try and do this twice a week. Tomorrow, by the way, is the Illinois print competition. So if you're a print competitor, or if you're not a print competitor and you want to be a better photographer, watching a print competition is a wonderful way to pick up a bunch of tips that you never thought you needed. So highly impress upon you to catch that. And if you're on my Discord server, we'll be live streaming that and bantering as we watch these scores come in to kind of see if we agree with the judges or if we don't. But that's a great way to improve your photography. If you've never watched a print competition before, each image comes up and the judges actually talk about what's good and what's bad with it. And you learn a ton from just watching that type of exchange. So I'm going to work on one of these pictures today. These are pictures of my friend Angela, and I've worked with her a ton. And every time I work with her, it's a problem because we get so many good images. And then you're like, where do you want to start? So some of these I have done similar ones before. So I don't want to pick on the same type of thing, but I'm kind of gravitating toward this one because I don't have one that's kind of like this. And so this is kind of the one I think we're going to work on. So if you have an opinion or you have questions, anything, please feel free to throw it into the comments because that helps me know that you're watching and interacting. And that way you're not just like watching me and going, well, yeah, I guess I don't know what he did there, and that's okay. I want you to learn from this process. That's the reason I actually stream this. We will be doing a live stream this coming Saturday as well from the studio where we'll be doing a small group shoot, so a small group because of COVID, obviously. So an opportunity to see some of those things. We're going to try something different. We're going to try it with a 360 camera, so you'll be able to actually pan around the room and look at the part of the video that you like. At least that's the intention. So we're going to see if I can pull that off because that would be pretty neat. All right, so I think I'm going to work on this one today just because I don't have one that's like it. Let's check the focus first. Okay. So I'm using Capture One. It's similar to Lightroom. I call it Lightroom for grown-ups. It's a better RAW converter. It does some other things not as well as Lightroom. So if you're a big keywording fan, for example, this is not your tool du jour, but is a much better RAW converter than Lightroom by far, and that's really what's important. When I was first starting out, I would use Lightroom all the time, but I would bring all of my images into Capture One to convert the RAW, and then I would go back to Lightroom. But Capture One has caught up enough in other areas now that it doesn't hold me back. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get rid of my browser here, and I'm going to, actually, I have some screencast keys I'm going to turn on here that maybe you can see what I'm pushing button-wise. We're going to get rid of, we're on a recipe right now that has my watermark on it. This is the filing for the Copyright Office, and that's why that's showing up. So I'll just change it to the recipe here, and this will go away. All right, so we got to fix the crop here because it's crooked. That drives me absolutely nuts. So I'm going to hit R, and I'm just going to draw a straight line to make the only vertical. This looks like it'll work horizontally, so I'm okay with this. I'm not going to worry about the fact that we've got a gap here. I'm probably going to end up losing a bit of that when we crop this. So I'm going to crop for probably a 4x5 or an 8x10 if you're into antique frame sizes. But because we don't care about the bottom of this frame, that crop will probably work pretty well. If it were 2x3, we'd have a lot of extra headroom and footroom, and that really isn't positive. So here we go. And if you're thinking this is a bit bright, then we need to talk about exposure and how your camera works. This is actually perfect. And the reason I say that is if we go ahead and let's start looking at this thing. Now again, you can do the same thing in Lightroom. It's not special to what Capture One's doing. If you're shooting RAW, then you have these abilities. But one of the things we want to look at is the curve. And you'll notice that we still have a gap here, right here. And that gap shows that we still had data we could have captured inside the camera. And ideally, you want to push your camera as far to the right as you can, because this entire area here, this first stop, is a half of your image data. And this is a quarter of your image data, an eighth and a 16th. So you can see that if we had underexposed this by one stop, then all of this information would have been lost. It would have been off the left-hand side of the graph there, which means that it would have been very noisy for us to be able to bring any of that back. So we want to push everything to the right. Now you may say, well, her face is really blown out. We can always bring the exposure down because we didn't blow it out. So we can always bring it down, and that's okay now that we've captured the data. Now we can choose as artists what we want to do with it. So this makes it a lot moodier, obviously. And I can bring the shadows up without fear now, because remember, I have this data. So bringing up the shadows is not going to hurt me. So I can find this balance that I would not have been able to find had I overexposed this. Her forehead is a bit bright here. So again, I can use some of these stronger tools like the highlight recovery here to just pull the highlight back just a bit. I don't want to pull it back too far because it might look a little fake. Let me know if the music is too loud. I just put it in there because it helps with dead air and I'm not sitting there chatting at you the whole time. I want to do all my exposure corrections in RAW before I go to Photoshop. It is not the best idea to do exposure corrections once the pixels are rendered out of RAW. You get a much better result right now. So I'm going to hit G on my keyboard to bring up a gradient tool, and I'm going to bring it on this side. So I hold down Shift so I can strain it so it's straight, and I just want to lower the exposure or brightness on this side just to kind of bring that down a bit. I want it to highlight her arm, but I don't need the wall glowing. And that automatically created an adjustment layer for me here. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to hold this down and create a new empty adjustment layer. You don't have to hold it down, but I held it down to show that there are different options there. I want to do the same thing on the floor here a bit. I just want to G for gradient, Shift to constrain it, and then I'm going to pull down the brightness just a bit. I don't want the image muddy, but I don't want your eye wandering around the floor either. This wall here we'll deal with in Photoshop. We're going to probably add a texture or something just to make it more interesting. This is in my studio, and my studio used to hold road salt, so it's a giant concrete box. It's not very interesting, so we do is create these little vignettes, and I paint random walls, random colors, and then play with them later. So all the art that you see here on this channel or in my portfolio is made probably in that location, and we get really creative with things like that. So we're gonna export this to Photoshop. That's all we're gonna do right now. We'll come back and do color grading and any contrast or things like that later. I don't want to do that now. I need to make sure that I attach all my metadata to this. This is an older image, so I want to make sure I have that in here. And then what I do is I use the description to rename the Photoshop file as it's pushed to Photoshop. I do that because I hate dealing with just this thing down here. Like, who knows what this is? You see that later. So I'm going to say Venaria in black with horns. Good enough. In fact, plenty. And this is a great way for me to know later what it is. I'm just going to make sure that I like my exposure. I think I want it a bit brighter, maybe. I'm a little torn. It's this highlight recovery that we did on the face that's bothering me a bit, I think. Yeah, that's better. Just a bit too aggressive. Once we leave this and we go to Photoshop, it's very difficult for us to make any adjustments to exposure because those pixels they're not as malleable. So by the way, yes, this is the thank you that was up if you didn't see it earlier. YouTube, which is the system I'm using for membership, obviously doesn't have a really nice way to export the members like Patreon does, and I closed down my Patreon and moved everything here to YouTube. So it's one-stop shop, and some of the videos that I'm putting out, for example, this one will be available for a few days, and then it'll move into the member-only area, along with all the textures I give away and a lot of the actions I give away. So be sure to support the channel if you like the videos, or hey, just subscribe and like it. That also helps. All right, so I'm trying to make you a better photographer and at least a better retoucher of your own photography. Okay, this is a great picture. I really like this one. I don't know why I hadn't retouched it earlier. So the first thing we probably want to do is, if we're going to do any skin retouching, we do that right away. That's just my golden rule, because we know we're never going to have to do it again. So let's just go ahead and do it. And we use a frequency separation action. If you don't have that action, it's free. Just grab it in the description for this video below. It is free. You can always, make it a couple dollar donation if you find it useful, but that is your call. It's not very fancy. So all I'm doing is separating the color from the frequency. And if you think the frequency separation is a bad thing because you've seen terrible things done with it, I say it's kind of like crayons, right? You can make great art with crayons, and you can make a melted pile of wax with crayons. So don't judge it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to double check that my frequency layer is correct by alt clicking on that high layer, and I shouldn't see any color outside the lips. The lips are pretty much the only thing that'll have any color on them because they are so saturated. Any other color, like we're picking up some in the hair a little bit, would indicate to me that I didn't get quite enough separation. But what we're going to do, this will be fine. So what I want to do is I want to turn the high layer off and go to the low layer here. And I'm just going to get rid of any marks that I see in this view that are distracting. And I use the healing tool. There's 1,000 tools you can use to do this. A lot of people prefer to use the mixer brush where you just kind of smear everything around. That is a tool and it works fine. And I'm going to end up turning this thing off down here. I can see because it's showing the word alt. I am clicking the alt key that often, by the way. I am resampling constantly. Let me know if that's helpful. I'm finding it visually distracting. I'm going to turn it off. Anyway, you let me know if that was something that was handy. I don't know that it was going to be helpful, but it was one of those kind of cool tools. I thought I would give it a try. That was Monty gave me that suggestion. Thank you very much for that. So again, I'm just looking for things that are visually distracting. I'm not trying to make her perfect. She has great skin, so it's easy. If you're not a fan of like darkness under the eyes here, or you have a client with that, here's a great trick. Just kind of sample from somewhere. And then, because we're color right now, so you can actually just use this with color. Go B for brush, put a new layer on here. Low flow, and I'll grab just something on her cheek here and just fill in the color that I want it to be. We're kind of painting. But remember, we're painting on a color layer, so that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Just kind of paint in until we're happy with it. And don't be afraid that you can't be artsy in these things. If you feel that you want a brighter spot here and there, you can go ahead and add it in there. There's nothing wrong with that. It's one of those great things about Photoshop is you have a lot of different options. I like to use the brush in here because you get a lot more control and you kind of paint the color you want. So instead of using a mixer brush to smear stuff around, or instead of using a healing brush to try and heal over things, just paint the color you want. Again, you're looking at a blurry picture, so chances are pretty good that you'll be able to do whatever you want to do. I'm going to merge this down because I don't like having a bunch of layers in there. And I think that's pretty good. So we're going to go around her body quickly here to make sure that we have everything mark-wise gone that we don't want to see. Quick here, we're not looking to get rid of every mark because her skin is real, but want to make her skin look like it's the best skin that she's ever had, right? This is her best skin day. So we're just getting rid of the marks that are visually distracting. Super fast. Now, if you've got someone who has a lot of cellulite or something like that, there's a completely different technique for that. That is not something that you use this for. You could for lighter cases, but you're going to end up with a situation where you get a very weird kind of fake look to things. So I'll show you a different technique to that. It may not be on this image. And I'm checking everything, not just her skin, by the way. Any mark that is going to be distracting visually is going to be easy to remove using this technique. So just kind of super fast, painting around the image and coming back to this one more time. Just a little visual break. Is that music too loud? Let me know what you think on that. I just thought jazz was easy, right? Nobody hates jazz. Pick bluegrass. That's polarizing. All right, so then I'm going to switch to the high layer here, and I'm going to use a clone stamp, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to remove, again, any visual marks that kind of distract me. And I'm just using, again, my sample key like a madman. Sample almost every time I do something different, just because I want to make sure that I get no clone marks. Now, you got to be careful here, too, because if you remove... say you sample from a darker area into a lighter area, it's going to be very smooth. And if you do the opposite, if you sample from a light area into a darker area, it's going to see extra grainy. You can use this to your advantage, though, if you have an area where you're not getting enough texture, it looks too smooth and it looks overly fake, then just sample from a bit later area. Like for example, here, I could use a little bit more texture, but I bet I can probably get that from the rest of her cheek here. Maybe. That was a terrible example, but I see the problem is I need to get a little texture in there. So I'm just going to borrow it from our surrounding area and then just correct it. Now we are zoomed in here really close, so if you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of skin there to retouch, we don't want her skin to be smooth. We just want to get rid of, again, the distraction. So give her the best skin that she's had for that day. My rule is if it's something that is going to be here in 2 weeks, then chances are she gets to keep it, unless she said to me, hey, I hate that, extra limb that I have there. Can you just, get rid of that in Photoshop? Then yeah, do it. Don't volunteer to do other things. I have seen more than one person cry when someone has retouched an image and has removed something that they shouldn't have removed. So don't do that. Don't become one of those people. Don't make a person go, oh, he thinks I'm fat too because you did something you weren't supposed to do. That is not your job, is to make them feel good about themselves, right? And so I always ask, I'm like, hey, is there anything you're sensitive about? And they'll tell you, hey, I don't like this extra limb. Then you say, do you want me to remove that from the photos? I'll say yes. And you say, okay, well, there's an upcharge for that because of maybe how much work it is, or you just eat it because it's not going to be hard work. That's your call. But also remember, your time is valuable as a photographer. Don't give stuff away because a person wants 800 edits and they want you to go ahead and change the color of the shag in their living room each time. You charge for that, right? Otherwise, you're going to be working on that project for years and you don't make any more money. So that's a dead end. I mean, this looks great. I'm very happy with that. Again, quick scan down the body. And a great thing about this technique is we can do this right over a tattoo without much of a problem. Yeah, we're just fixing any bright spots, anything that jumps out at me. I'm not going to remove little moles like this, by the way, because that is believability, which is something we are trying to sell. Right? We don't want to make her body seem inordinately perfect because she's going to notice and people are going to go, wow, her skin looks really fake. Well, her skin does look fake. You removed all the stuff. So we're just going to do super fast. Good. Actually, right in here. There's a couple different ways to fix this, but if we go through with the texture, we can get rid of some of this. Her belt was very tight on her. That's okay. She knows her belt was tight on her. All right. Something like that. We know there was a problem down here earlier because we fixed it a bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit that super fast. It's no time to do it right. Okay, so there we go. That's our before and after so far. So you see it was mostly just skin there. A cute trick while we're still separated, by the way, is this hair here, these random hairs. Now we could remove these, and we probably will with, say, this specific one here. But if you have other hair that's just kind of barely there and you're not confident you can remove it, like say these in here, although I think all these could probably go away. You can go on the high layer, the texture layer here, and just give them the texture of the background. And what will happen is they'll look like they're caught in the depth of field. So it's a great way to kind of blur the edge. I'm actually going to undo this because I think that we can remove most of these with proper technique. And then if there's any left, we'll go back and goof with them. So I like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stamp visible, which is Control-Alt-Shift-E. And that takes everything that's visible and makes it one flat layer. So I'm going to go ahead and delete my frequency. I don't need that anymore. You can do that as many times as you like because it is not destructive. So now we're separated. Let's go ahead and use the healing tool and get rid of some of these by using the background. So just the texture of the background and using a healing brush just to get rid of any of these that kind of, again, visually distracting. If you like this video, by the way, take a moment to click the like button right now. If you're still with me and I haven't put you to sleep with my jazz or my smooth voice, then please click the like button. that helps other people know what's going on. And if these are well watched, then I'll do them. I'll even maybe do more of them. Might have some other ones coming up soon that are a lot more weird. We're going to be doing that diving helmet that usually sits behind me. If you haven't seen that before, it's a little craft that I made during my COVID-cation. We're going to be doing something with that. If you have to pick up the new version of, or the new edition of Shutter Magazine, by the way, there's a little article in there that I wrote that shows the making of that helmet. So kind of a cool thing to see how I put it together. I've never done anything like that before. It was my first piece of almost like cosplay type of stuff. So again, I'm just healing these out a bit. They don't have to be perfect. I just don't want them distracting. That's much better. I'll leave some of these. I mean, that's fine. If you're really worried about like these, the way to get rid of those is to use, my favorite method is the old spot healing brush. And make it just a little bit bigger. Just take your time and go over each one. And you'd be surprised at how fast you can get around a head of hair and how effective the method is. You can also hold down your shift key to draw a straight line. So if you need to do this, we're not going to do this whole head of hair. Hair is not something I typically retouch too much of. I mean, I do like the super distracting part, but if I'm trying to teach you to be a better photographer, I would tell you to take 10 minutes and do this one. It's Scott Head. How you doing, buddy? Oh, you're taking off already. Well, it'll be in the member area for you later, so thank you very much for your support. So I'm going to do just a few of these for you so you kind of get the idea. But just super fast, kind of brush over these things using that automated version of this tool. The healing brush that's kind of got the smart version of it. Typically, I don't like that version, but I do for hair. It works really well. My brush might be a bit small, which is why I keep getting those kind of shadows there. Something like this. Okay. So our before and after so far, and you can see just 2 or 3 minutes makes a huge difference for getting rid of distracting little things like that. Okay, so now let's play with this. Well, we got down here, we got to get rid of this crack too. So since we're still healing stuff, I'm going to change it to the one where we pick what we want to heal from. I like that method better. Just get rid of this using these little things. So just the details that matter, right? Take your time and go around the image and see if there's something goofy that you should fix. Okay, that's nice. I like it. It's super easy. So let's do, since we're working on skin here, let's do a quick dodge and burn. So dodge and burn is very simple. We just create a couple layers. One will brighten and one will darken. And that's it. And then we apply a mask and we kind of see through them. So let's do that. So I'm going to do it a little bit different way than I usually do. I'm going to use exposure tool. So I'm going to say this is a one stop brighter. And this will be our dodge. And I want to do one more and I'll just use exposure. And this will be one stop darker. And we'll call this one our burn. You can do this with curves as well. I just thought I'd try it with exposure. If you do this in RAW, by the way, it's a lot more powerful because you don't get the shift that you will color-wise when you're in here. So if you do this in Capture One first, it's a lot nicer result. So what you do here is you just take this mask and you invert it. So Control I, same with this one, Control I. And now as we use a brush at 1% flow, we use a white brush. So we use a dodge layer and keep going over and over and over. You'll see we'll eventually make that exposure. We alt click here. Oops, alt click. You can see that's what we kind of made. Very simple technique, but that gives us some cool ideas. You see here we have like a little bit of a darker area or lighter area. In fact, let's re-separate this while we're looking at it because I see some things I'm going to want to fix. So we're just going to re-frequency separate this again. I think we said 4 last time was a bit too much, so let's try 5 this time. Very easy. So now we can go and continue to make any corrections we see to the texture, for example, in here. But we getting rid of this hair, for example, it's just easier to do without the texture in the way. But we see this is like a little rough down here, and it doesn't look very good. We need to fix that up. So the way to do that is, in my way, is to just take a solid color, usually a gray. I'll trim this to you, just a gray, any color gray. So against, as long as this is over on the side here, your saturation is 0. It doesn't matter. And then we're going to change this to hue or color. Like this is one of those two. This gives you a true black and white, and it's not adjusted. It's not doing anything fancy. And the reason we do this is because it's compatible with the techniques we're going to be using. Now we can almost see this a little bit better, but let's put a curve on it. And this curve has no rules. We're just going to bend this curve and do anything we want to do with it. And just use it to see. So I'm looking to see what kind of blotchy mess I made down in there. You can see a little bit better. Just trying to see how blotchy this is right in here. Now I can use these tools. So I can use my dodge tool. And I can go in and just add that little bit of exposure in here to kind of make it not look as blotchy. And you kind of want to use these tools equally. You want to dodge and you want to burn. You want to both. Otherwise, you'll end up brightening your portrait significantly, which is fine, but not ideal. So I'm going to burn this down here a little bit. And we're looking at this under a very high contrast situation, obviously, we created with this curve. So when we turn all that off, this will look a lot better. We just want this to look like its neighbors. We don't want to make it so that it's perfectly smooth. Okay, so if we just back out here and turn these off, we can see what we did already. Let's put all of these in a group, by the way. So I'm gonna hold down my shift key and click the folder. So this is our dodge and burn, so D and B. And if we turn this on and off, you can see what we did. So very simple adjustment, and it took us seconds, but that makes the polish to these images happen. So I'm gonna go back and we're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna do, again, don't get in too close. If you get in too close, it's gonna be, you're gonna be there a while. And if it's gonna be a big print, that's fine. But if it's not gonna be printed huge, then don't do that to yourself. I'm looking at these spots here. So I'm gonna use, again, a little bit of dodging here and just kind of brighten these darker areas up just a bit. So then her skin will look great, even in the shadow areas. If this is printed, this kind of stuff really matters. If you're not printing this kind of thing, or you don't print at all, you should be. Printing your stuff is pretty cool. Be able to hang it on the wall or give it to somebody. I know a lot of people are into digital photography these days, but everyone is into digital photography. And I've had people come to me and say, hey, this person, photographed my wedding and we really wanted to hang something on the wall, but they didn't offer that I have printed work for people. If you get a model release, if you give your client a model release with those digitals, they don't necessarily have to go to Walgreens. They can come to me and I will print that for them. And I'll print it on really nice paper through one of my labs, a lab that they could have used. And make sure, by the way, you don't make little mistakes like that where you see the same mark twice. That is a beginner level error there. Don't do that to yourself. Don't make those little clone track things. So give your clients a chance to print their work. And if you print your work and you hang it on the wall, you will sell prints of that size. So I have a lot of prints in my studio, big ones, on the wall. And when I used to not have the studio and I'd go meet clients, I'd take those prints with me to their house and show them there. So there's no reason for you to have an excuse not to do it. And you make a little bit of money on those prints, obviously. But you run your business your way. But I will tell you that if you don't do any printing, you are leaving money on the table. Money that I'm probably going to make from your client. Make sure you offer printing. Again, I'm just doing a quick once over on anything that draws my eye. Again, we are under some pretty heavy contrast here, so we can see things that we normally wouldn't see. You don't have to make your skin perfect, right? Because we're dealing with this under a microscope right now. We are really in here, so don't feel like you have to correct every little mark, which is what I'm doing right now. I need to stop and get out of there. Get out of there. They come down in here, and we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to do this kind of curvy mess thing. I'm just trying to make it blotchy, so then I can see, oh, these are areas I need to fix. I'm going to go and grab my dodge and just brighten this up just a bit in here. Doesn't be perfect, but it will be better than it was. If it looks better now, then you made an improvement, and that's really the goal. Don't don't say if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. I mean, it's a chance for you to make it better, even if it's not perfect. Right? We got to be careful though, because this is the side of her breast. We don't want to like completely get rid of that, because you could. I mean, you could dodge all this down and flatten her completely. So be aware of where you are anatomically. And this is one of those methods that is great for getting rid of cellulite. If you have a client with this is nice because the skin texture is still there. The little hairs, the pores, all that stuff that makes them human that you should not be getting rid of, by the way, is still there, you know, when you're done, and it will still look like their leg, but it'll be smoother. So you're just dodging and burning those spots that are kind of distracting down. That's all you're doing. Very kind of a simple thing. And you can, again, you can get caught in here and you can spend hours, and you know, that's okay. If this is a client that's buying a big print or a big book, you know, take the time to do it. That's why you're in business, right? You're differentiating yourself from the people down the street who just got their camera at Best Buy, and they want to suddenly compete with you by lowering their prices lower than you, and you're panicked. You shouldn't be, right? You just make your quality better. People that want quality over quantity will come to you, and those people pay better. So if you're trying to race to the bottom price-wise, you need to stop that. You're not doing yourself any favors, and you're not going to be in business very long, and you're going to be working a lot of hours. I'll also tell you that people that tend not to pay a lot for photography don't value it as much. I've had clients that are blue-collar workers that still spend money with me because they want the photos. The photos to them are important. It's kind of like the person who has the wedding photographer and they have a $500 budget. That is not my customer, right? If they only have a $500 budget for that, the bachelor party was probably a lot more. And which one are you going to be remembering or regretting, right, years later? Those photos are going to outlast the dress and the cake and all the other things. It is not outside of reason to find a bride that understands that photos are the thing that they really need to put their money into. And you're, by the way, you're selling that to the bride. You're not selling it to anybody else. The bride is one who's buying the photos. The groom typically doesn't care or care as much. That's just, again, that's kind of being stereotypical about it, but no, that's not, that doesn't mean it's wrong. Okay, so same thing. I'm just kind of trying to light different parts of the thigh here as I'm working way around, and I'm taking my time to do this, and it may not be the most thrilling Photoshop work to watch, but this is the process, right? This is what you have to do, and I'm being a bit quick with it, but I also want to give her a nice result. She's a friend. She's very lovely and comes to a lot of events, and she brings her creative A game, and she doesn't model for a lot of people. So I appreciate the fact that she goes out of her way to come in the studio and do this. You can tell she was sitting on the couch there because she's got these skin, the mark in her skin from the texture of the couch. It's pretty funny. If you want to you could actually take your time and dodge and burn all that out. I mean, that's how effective this technique is, but that's a lot of work. And would she notice? Probably not. Almost done. Just do the underside of the leg here. So by the way, if this is too bright for you, there's another way to do it. Just reset this whole thing and flip this over. So if you flip it over, now you can work on it as a negative. This. And that might be easier on your eyes. But remember, all these things are now flipped. So dodging will make things darker and not lighter. So it's the other way around. But if you need that little bit of visual relief, this is another way to do it. And then here we go. And again, we're just trying to quickly get rid of anything that draws my eye. And I think we're done. Okay, so let's zoom out and let's take a look at this and you can see what we did. So here's her leg, and there's our before and after. Back here especially. On the face. So it's small, but again, if you're printing this large, this is the differentiator between you and everyone else. I would love to get rid of this fold over the belt, but anything we do is just not going to probably look as real as this. So I'm actually going to leave it. And that's my fault as a photographer. I should have done something to help here, but she knew these were really tight. We can do something here though. But we're going to do that after we get the skin done, which, by the way, we're pretty much done. I do want to do one more dodge and burn. I want to do one blank layer here. I'm going to do shift backspace for fill, and I'm going to fill with gray. So this gray layer is really handy. And if we use the overlay blending mode, overlay is kind of cool. What overlay does is anything that is brighter than 50% gray, it will make a screen blending mode, and anything darker than 50% gray, it will make a multiply blending mode. So we can do both things with one tool. So it becomes the great dodge and burn tool. The trouble is that if we brighten anything too much under screen, it's going to start to take on a weird color cast. So we got to be careful there. So what I like to do is use this just for highlighting muscle areas. So for example, if we want to just like across the top of our thigh here, just something like that. And then we can hit X to bring it dark and just kind of say, well, we want to feature that. We're just kind of touching the area. So for example, the side of the breast here and the side of the lat, we can hit X and come between those two and make that a bit darker. Same with the shoulder. So we just kind of highlight the shoulder and then draw down the arm here a little bit. And same with this arm here. So let's turn that on and off and you can see what I did super fast. And you can reshape a body using this technique. This is kind of like what people do with makeup, right? You're using it to sculpt. You're doing the exact same thing here. So we're going to do this a bit on the face. Now our forehead's already pretty bright, so I probably won't do much there, but I do want to do down the nose, do the side of her nostril here, and then Cupid's bow, or the snot trough, depending if you like the technique. And again, hit X to switch between dark and light. That's all I'm doing here. It's very fast. Technique under the eye, cheek here, cheek. That's also pretty cool across the lips. It can make them look a little glossier. And then the chin. So it's very quick, and then let's see before and after on that. So it's just a little bit, but it's that nuance that I think polishes the image right up. It makes it look much better. Okay, I like all the skin, and we're probably not going to change any of that. So what I would probably do is take this whole thing and create a smart object out of it. So if you wanted to save it for later. Now, I don't really need to do that. I'm just going to leave it here because we're at 712 meg. We're not very big. We don't have to worry about it. If we are approaching 2 gig, then we have to kind of freak out a bit. But for this is a fine amount, so I'm good with that. Okay, so I do want to fix this little bit of wiggliness on her butt there. So in order to do that, I actually have to modify flattened version of the image, because if we go down here and we modify this one, then all the skin will be wrong and it won't line up. So we actually have to Control-Alt-Shift-E again. Very handy command, by the way. But now all this other stuff isn't really going to matter because it's no longer being shown. Like this is on top. I'm going to keep it just as like an emergency. But if we get farther and farther away from this and we keep making other layers, I'm eventually going to come back and just delete it because it's not going to be helpful. What we could do is, the frequency layer, we can always frequency separate. But if we don't want to worry about dodge and burn again, we can always drag it to the top and keep pushing it up the top the whole time. To me, I don't worry about it that much. You're really going to come back to it. I think there's a fine line between knowing what work you need to do and what work you're doing you don't need to do. For example, keywording images. How much time do you spend keywording? Are you using this and saying redhead, seated, black, lingerie, boudoir, inside? Are you keywording that? Why would you keyword that? Are you ever going to go, I need to do a search for all the redheads that are seated in my entire portfolio? I'm never going to do that. Realistically, I'm never going to do that. But if you take 20 minutes to keyword your images because you're a little OCD about it, you're going to find that you run into situations where you're spending a lot of time not being efficient. And this is a professional photographer is an efficient photographer. We get done what we need to get done as soon as we can do it. And then we don't dally around with other things that aren't that important. Okay, so in this situation, I'm just going to create a box here. If you hold on your shift key, by the way, you can move the box around, which is one of the cooler things I like about it. So I'm just going to hold this down, and then I'm going to do Control-Shift-X, or Control Shift X. So Control Shift X is the liquefy tool, and it's somewhere up in the menus. I haven't used the menu for this tool for, I don't know, ever, so I'm not going to worry about it. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to push and pull this stuff around a little bit, just to get rid of any of the bands kind of pushing in. We do want it to push in a little bit because it did push in a little bit, but it doesn't have to make her look like she's, you know, a Michelin tire guy. That's not the thing. If we want to minimize the thigh for a bit, we can pull this up a bit here because she's sitting on the edge, but she's not overweight. So I mean, don't go nuts here. But any sort of bunching like this that's due to the outfit, you can minimize it a bit. Don't feel guilty about that. But don't make her feel self-conscious. I can actually pull out on things too and not just push in. My goal is to get rid of the strain there, not to focus on making her look thin, right? And if I like this, I'm just going to hit Control J, which is going to take whatever's in that rectangle and make its own layer. I'm going to get rid of this. So this is just that change. And the reason I do this is, again, conservation of memory. 772 meg, keeping it efficient, keeping it small. It is not uncommon for me to exceed 2 gig on an image. In fact, if you watch this channel at all, I exceed 2 gig all the time in images. I'm going to pull my Wacom down for a second. I don't use it. I use my Wacom when I'm drawing. Like if I'm drawing, I'm dodging and burning, I'm drawing, or if I'm retouching skin, I'm drawing. But after that, I put it down because I find it inefficient for me to try and move my mouse around. Okay, this wall is bugging me, so let's fix that. So I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hit Control S while I'm thinking about it, by the way, to start to save, because my save is a bit long. And you're gonna find that I had trouble finding this, and the reason is that we have to actually select a layer with her image data on it first. Otherwise it won't work. So I run into that all the time. I do it all the time, and then I realize, oh yeah, that's what it does. So I just want the wall. And I'm not gonna take a ton of time selecting it. That's probably enough. I do like to do this other little thing. I'll just select a mask, but I hold on my Shift key, and this will give you the legacy version. And I like this a little bit better. See, it can sometimes find a softer edge to something. Today is not one of those days. I don't like what we're doing there. So I'm just going to go back. We're going to use this. So save selection. I'm just going to call it 1. And I'm going to go grab my bridge, and let's go find a texture. This you see this pop up, by the way, Flux. If you're not familiar with Flux, that's I don't even remember what website. Let me look real quick here. It is, there you go. I don't know where it went. Anyway, Flux is an application that makes your screen more orange as the end of the day approaches. So it helps you with sleeping because I have trouble sleeping, and it makes it so your brain knows it's time to kind of close down. I'm going to use this one. These are from a texture pack I haven't released yet. And I have 2 different textures that I make. One that has the impasto, that is the 3-dimensional paint on it, and then I make one that doesn't have paint. And I think I'm going to use the 3-dimensional one. I'm going to use this pink one here. I wouldn't really care what the color is, per se. I just care about that it's going to be textured. And I'm going to right-click. I'm going to choose Distort. And I'm just going to change it so that it's kind of lining up with that wall a bit. I want to be a bit on the outside of the wall, but I just kind of want to be around it. Okay, so probably bring this in too, just so it's a little more aggressive. And that horizontal stretch there, the vertical stretch. That's good. Then we're going to put it on top so we can see it. There it is. Ta-da! So I'm going to do channels, and I'm going to control click on any channel. So when we did that save selection, it actually put it in here into channels. Just control click on it, and it'll load it. It's easier than going up here to select, load selection, 1, and clicking OK. That's the exact same thing we did by going to channels and control clicking. Again, it's about being efficient. We want to be in and out of here as soon as we can. And what I want to do is I want to apply the mask here, and that'll look pretty good. But obviously it's the wrong color, or the wrong value, first of all, that you're dark and you're bright. So we refer to value, we refer to hue, which is blue or pink, and we refer to saturation, how blue and how pink. Those 3 things determine everything. And once you get a grasp on that, you can troubleshoot through your images. And that's really what we do in Photoshop and as photographers. We troubleshoot those 3 things. I'm going to change the blending mode to something like overlay, soft light, probably overlay. It adds a little bit of texture there. It's the wrong color. So we're just going to add a hue and saturation adjustment, and we're going to clip it to that. And now we can change the color of that wall to be whatever we would like. So, and again, how saturated and then how bright or how dark, right? This is your trinity we just talked about there. So I'm going to bring this dark. If I want to turn this on and off to kind of see how it looks compared to the original one, that's sometimes helpful. So I do like a little bit of color here, and we can play the game with the color of her hair. Or, so for example, we use an eyedropper here, her hair. I'm doing it on a mask. That's not working. Here we go. So then we can go up here and say, what's the complement of this? We'd have to figure that out. So if we say we're over here, I don't remember how to use this tool anymore if that's not obvious. So it's this teal color here. So we could say we really like that kind of teal color. So let's go here and make it more of a teal color. By the way, if you fall off the end of this side, you can always go back over this side. It's just, it wraps around. Something like that. This is a great tool, but I forget how to use it, or how to get, I should say, the color from here to here. Like I want to move these dials, so I don't remember how to do that. I have to remember. When I use it for painting in Photoshop, I physically move it around. I don't tend to do much sampling from here to here. So something like that, maybe. I'm just going to look at it for a bit here and say if maybe I just want to make it the same as her hair. Play this brown color a bit. And I don't want it distracting. I just kind of want it there. You shouldn't know that I messed with it. If it looks fake, then you lose. So something like that. Just delicate. Perhaps. I don't know. I'm going to look at it for a while and decide. So I'm going to save. If you like, by the way, if you're one of these people who enjoys like a little bit of a glow thing, some people the other day saw me do this and like, well, I don't know what you just did. Just create a new layer. B for brush, a big soft brush. And then we want to find a nice yellow color. So something like this, just a bright yellow. And again, I do is I turn this up to 100% and just tap. And you want to tap outside the canvas, just tap. And then you can change the location by hitting V. If you need to move it up or down, you need to do that beforehand, by the way. You can then change the opacity on this if you want to add a little bit of a glow, which I think helps this image. It needs a little something to help focus the eye over here. We can also do the same thing by changing the blending mode. Again, screen is your typical culprit for making things brighter. I think I like that better. Let's try that again, but I'm not going to make it such a big circle this time. I'm going to try a little bit smaller circle. So, if you want to, just put it right in the middle of the canvas, right? And then hit V to move it, and you can move it around at that point. Although you see we still have an edge here, because that brush was still pretty big, but we can fix that. So I'm just going here, screen, and then drop the opacity down just a bit. Just adds a little visual interest, perhaps. I'm going to put a mask on it, hit B and X, and I need to get rid of that edge. There's like a little edge. There we go. Just simple. If you don't like the color, use a solid color adjustment layer and then clip it here. And now you can use this to control the color. Instead of redrawing it constantly with different colors, you just go and do it this way. So if you want more saturated or less saturated, or darker value, or different color, you can test your theories here without having to redraw the circle every time. Like that, perhaps. There, I like that. It's nice. So let's save that again, and let's go into Capture One and do a super fast color grade on this thing. I don't know if there's anything else I want to do. Like, I always want to put like a weird circle behind her head for, you know, that arcane look. Let's just try it real fast, just to make me happy. So B for brush, and then I have a bunch of those circles here. Used to have a bunch of them. Let's go load them. I have a lot of brushes over the years. I just organized them. And these are all brushes I paid for, by the way. I'm one of those guys who actually pays for brushes. Let's try this one. It's 2009. Let's try something a little messy. Try this. Like that. I'm just going to use a not white color. So just use something not pure white. Pure white doesn't react real well to blending modes. So I'm going to keep it to like a yellowish. Again, the color doesn't matter, right? It's just that I don't want it to be white. So I'm just going to pop this actually anywhere in here. And then I'm going to try and we're going to Control T. And now we're going to start to kind of move it. Now, it wouldn't be flat like this. It would have perspective. So we're going to right click and choose perspective. We're going to pull it up like this. Because that wall would be angled. Something like that. Yeah, that's good. And then Control T again, and I would make it a bit smaller, so it's just behind her head. So it's like on the wall, but behind her, so something like this. Something like that, maybe? I don't know. We're just experimenting. We're trying stuff. And then we have to find a blending mode that allows it to see through, but not be obnoxious. And it's probably going to be, again, one of these. Overlay or soft light. Let's try soft light. Same trick with the solid color adjustment layer. Just pop one on there and clip it. And then we can go and we can change the color of this to affect that circle. So we can find a color we like. We are not finding a color we like. We're going the wrong way. We're making ugly things. We'll stay on the yellow side of this thing. I don't want it to glow. Like I'm thinking maybe I may need to go the other way with it and make it a dark mark on the wall so it's not as distracting. I'm not worried about that I can see it through her, by the way. We'll fix that later. We're worried more about just kind of incorporating this element into the image if we want it in the image. Oh, look at that. It made a happy accident. The red is kind of interesting in that. Kind of. Yeah. Maybe. No, I hate it. That's okay. It was worth trying, and it was an interesting experiment. I want to stick with maybe lighten here. Lighten is the easy one. Oops, I can be careful because I'm changing the color. I want to make sure this opacity stays at 100%. Then we just change the color of it here. But it's not going to matter as much because lighten doesn't care. I want more color control. Put that back to normal. Or overlay. Well, kind of like this. We're barely there. Let's run with that. Okay, so how do we get rid of the rest of this? So I'm just go back down to a layer that has the data on it that we want, and use this quick selection tool and just go over here. Your body. Doesn't have to be super accurate because it's this little barely there mark. So something like that. Good enough. And again, we can do that select a mask and hope that we can get, this is going to be tough because it's a very close separation color here with her hair. Not bad though. Actually doing better than I thought it would. That and okay, and then we just go back to this layer and click the mask icon. Yep, we want to invert it. Control I. There we go. So now we have a mask that should work, except for this part here. Small soft round brush. Any other weird spots? Yeah, just a few. Take your time and just make sure that it looks right. It isn't applied very very strongly, and we did do our mask is good enough. See, even down here, it looks pretty good. A little sanity check doesn't hurt. I like that. I'm glad we did that. And we can, again, continue to play with the colors until we're happy. I like it a little on the warmer side. The reason this isn't being as effective is because we are changing the blending mode of this color layer, and I didn't notice it. And I was sitting there going, I don't know why it wasn't reacting. So whenever you run into a situation like that and things aren't working out, it's usually a blending mode. What kind of circus music is this? This is horrible. You guys should tell me when it's a bad song. Say, hey, that's a bad song. So your amount of saturation is over here, and this is more saturated and this is least saturated. So I'm looking for something that's barely saturated. A little bit of yellow. Just kind of imagine that wall. I like it. I'm glad we took the time to do that. That's a cute little storytelling element. All right, let's go back into Capture One. Let's color grade this bad boy. So we're going to be my output folder. If you're not a Capture One user, this is still probably going to be pertinent to you because they just upgraded their tool to be more grown up. You can see all the great pictures I got from her in one day. I mean, look at the variety of pictures. I mean, it's nuts. Love working with her. Okay, so we'll go and add a little color grading time here. By the way, I'm looking here we don't have that many likes, but I have a lot of people watching. So if you like this, please take a moment and click the like button. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm gonna take the shadow here, and we're just gonna go all the way around the horn, and we're gonna find a color that we like for the shadows, right? And I almost always end up over here somewhere, but it varies a little bit from image to image. I like it right in here. Just make smaller and smaller circles, and then go and grab this and pull this up or down depending on what you like. A little bit of blue there is nice. Same thing in the mid-tone. This is more or less the skin tone, is a way to look at it. If you're not sure you get the skin tone right, just pull it all the way over and then adjust it until it doesn't look too yellow and it doesn't look too red. It looks, what you like. And then pull the volume down until you get the color that you like on her skin. I don't tend to play with highlight. I just tend to like what it does, usually. There's a little bit, takes a little bit of the yellow or that white off her forehead and makes it more this color. Say on her leg. And then the master is the overall color tone for the image, but it will also brighten the image. So you got to be careful with it. If we look at the curve when we're adjusting this, you'll see it's actually pushing the curve up. So again, going around the curve here until I find something I like, and then pull the volume down just to make sure you get it right. It's pretty decent. I'm happy with that. Okay, and any final contrast adjustments at this point? We could add a little contrast, or you can actually remove contrast, which I find more compelling sometimes. Like just pulling contrast back a bit is interesting. Maybe. In this image, I think I like it right there. Maybe a little shadow. Then we can pull the brightness down. You can't really use exposure anymore. That's just going to make everything look muddy and yucky. So once you rendered this to Photoshop, please don't touch this slider. Use this slider instead. This does the same thing now in what you're trying to accomplish anyway. Let's put it that way. Okay, that's very nice. Maybe a little more. Just trying to play with that a bit. It's still a bit bright over here, but I guess I don't mind it. If I do mind it, we can put a G on it again and pull that over, and then use brightness and pull that down so it's not glowing. Better. Okay, one final thing I want to do is I want to use a layer. I'm just going to hit that, hit B for brush, and I'm going to go and highlight her boots. You can see I'm using a very fancy taking time to make my mask look good, right? Don't worry about it. Don't go nuts trying to make your mask too decent. It's fine. Trust me, no one's gonna know. Especially if you're making subtle changes. If you're making violent changes, you probably did this wrong photography-wise. Take your time. So I'm gonna do. We're gonna do some clarity on that, and I'm probably gonna use punch, and I'm just gonna pull it up on her boots. It's just her boots. That's nice. And I'll probably get away with using the exact same layer on her hair. Now, you normally make a separate layer for that, but since we're here, again, I'm just gonna hit her hair. Don't hit her skin, because clarity on skin looks terrible. I've seen another photographer who does some Capture One videos do clarity on skin, and I was like, what are you doing? That looks terrible. So there we go. And you hit M if you want to see your sanity for your that. You can use E for erase if you need to go back and fix it. Also, don't do this. Like, don't go over the edge too much, because that will make a mark that'll be obvious. So don't do that kind of thing. It's bad. So let's turn that layer on and off. You can kind of see what we did. We just punched that just a bit. Just a tiny bit. I like it. I'm happy with it. Well, there you go. So let's find our, that's our after image. Our before image will not be in this folder. So we'll need to copy the image name. Let's do 2226. I'm gonna go to all images. I'm just gonna put this in here, type in 2226, and we have a before and after. So that is what we did today. We started with this image. We fixed the wall, retouched the skin, fixed a bit of the strap issues we had. Just again, subtle stuff. She's not gonna come to me and go, man, I don't look very good. Actually, I do see an issue. So we still have it open in Photoshop, and because we round robin this thing, we're fine. I do want to go back to that dodge and burn layer we had down here. Pick up my Wacom tablet again, and I'm gonna hit her eyes just a bit. So D for default colors, X to put white on top, and I'm gonna do low flow. And I'm gonna just catch this catch light in here. We're not trying to do anything stupid. So if we don't have a catch light in here, and we don't really, I'm just going to add a new layer. B. I'm going to paint one. Just using white paint. Like, I'm just going to go and paint in. I'll put the fire. So do little dots in here. Catch light here. And we have a similar one here, right? Oops. And I'm going to take that, I'm going to blur it. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Just give it a little bit of a blur. Something tiny. Hold on your Alt key, by the way, you get better control. And I can also change this layer to maybe vivid light. Sometimes it's better. Just adds that little bit of hello in there. I think I kind of screwed it up with this. With this one though, like I don't like that on an eye, so I'm gonna go back into this and just sample the gray color, and then just use that gray color on itself like that, and it'll take that out. Just a little bit of pop in the brights of the eyes there. Just notice that wasn't there. Go back to Capture One. That will automatically refresh here in a second. So now we have to decide if we like the coloration that we did to the image, and that's the thing where you walk away from your computer for a while. And you come back and go, is it too orange? It looks a little orange. And it's probably this mid-tone. By the way, you gotta make sure you're on the right layer here. I did all that. Oh, I'm all over the place today. There we go. This mid-tone here might be too much for her skin. Because we did it with the master too. We used the master to push up the warmth of the image here. And I think that looks better. That was too orange before. Like, that looks pretty good. Well, you guys were a quiet audience today. Not a single comment, except for Scott. So there you go. That's a typical project for me. We started Capture One, did some adjustments to the exposure. We didn't do any colorizing at all. Then we took it into Photoshop, did the skin first before we do anything else. Always do the skin. And then start playing around with ideas like, messing with the wall, putting a texture in the wall, adding like a little bit of a glow in the center of it, and then throwing that symbol in the wall. You know, we could do that all day long and play around, and that's really the fun of this. So if you would like to see more of these types of things, just subscribe to the channel. Again, clicking like helps people know it's here. And there's a link to my Discord down below. You should join the Discord. Tomorrow is the Northern Illinois print competition, and I've got some entries in there, but we're not going to be so much after looking at my entries. We're going to be looking at all the entries, and you're going to learn a ton just listening to what people talk about. The judges talk about what they see in the images, what's wrong, and I have learned so much about photography compositionally, retouching, you name it. You're gonna learn it. And the Northern Illinois group is a very group. Like, they have some people that are very good competitors, and then you have some people that are new, and so you get the whole range, and it's free. So it's a free to listen to event. So highly encourage you. Again, join the Discord. We're gonna simulcast that. We're just gonna sit back, have our well, it's in the day, so probably not drinking beer, but we'll be watching that. So everybody, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate your time, and I'll push this out there and see what you thinks of it. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Take care.